Katie, I don't want to gloat, but you're having some animal problems?
Are you really going to make me talk about it?
Yeah, I am. Go for it. Come on. Just say it.
Okay, I have thousands of little pets living in my ceiling.
Body. Oh. In your ceiling. So what happened? How did you find out? Tell us the whole story.
It's not much of a story. I saw one carpenter ant, and then I saw 10 carpenter ants, and now I'm seeing 100 carpenter ants. Yes, we have apparently carpenter ants in our ceiling. They are chewing their way through my ceiling, although I was complaining about this to Andy the other day, and he pointed out that at least my house is delicious.
Andy No or Andy Mills?
Yes.
Andy No was like the Muslim sent them.
Andy No and I talk on the phone all the time. Yeah.
So what did he say? Because he's the kind of guy who could fix an infestation, I think.
It was more podcast talk. He just said, well, your house is delicious. And then we moved on. But
Okay.
Look, I have the professionals on it. But this will get fixed eventually. It's just apparently it takes time. You spray the poison and then you have to wait for them to eat the poison and track the poison back to their babies. I have been committing genocide though. And I feel bad enough about it that I actually asked my friend Chad, who's a licensed entomologist,
Human rights expert and entomologist and anything you want him to be.
I did ask my friend Chad if ants can feel pain, and he assures me they cannot. I didn't
Actually, they can feel pain 10 times as much as humans can. Little known fact.
It wouldn't stop me. I do feel bad about it. I am like committing genocide on these ants, and I know, like, I've read some E.O. Wilson. I know they're an incredible species. I want them to die.
I mean, okay. So, well, anyway, the reason I had a jolt, and I feel horrible saying this because I would not want you or especially Jana to suffer in any way, especially Jana, but I felt like a certain, well, now it's your turn just because the pigeon thing I went through forever ago had such.
I don't think the pigeons were not in your home.
They effectively were. They were right there. They were like pressed up against the window, mocking me, and it sort of just permanently. I hope this resolves quickly, but I think this will bring us closer together as a podcast because it destroyed.
We both hate animals.
Yeah, this destroyed a chunk of my brain that will never come back. This will put us more on the same level.
I would honestly take pigeons.
Oh my God, over
ants. Yes,
the thing about ants is like it's never like I saw a carpenter ant. And then that was that. There weren't any others.
No.
There's never like any suspense over what the question of whether you're going to find more. There's always more because they're fucking ants.
Right. And the thing about ants also, carpenter ants in particular, is that they literally eat your house. So it's like this. It's like they're not termites, but they tunnel through wood. This is what I have. My friend Chad has told me. So it's like there could be structure, whatever. It's the whole fucking thing. Everybody pray for me. Don't pray for the ants. The ants are dying. Pray for me.
Well, Katie, I'm sorry about the ants. We've got a lot to get to today, but before we do, we briefly alluded to this in another episode, but my beloved Patriots were narrowly defeated by your...
Was it narrow?
Katie, yeah, I think so. By your Seattle Seahawks.
Was it?
In the Super Bowl last weekend. I don't remember the exact score. I think it was like maybe 1 point, a last second.
1-2? Was that
1 to 2 points.
Yeah, it was a great game. Super interesting, I hear.
Oh, I bet to non-football fans it was just incredibly entertaining. The way they kept kicking those field goals. After the game, a small group of people got extremely mad at me on the internet.
Again? What was it for this time?
So I'd been asked by an editor I know at the Boston Globe to write a column about the game before it happened. The plan was to run my piece, as well as a dueling piece by a Seahawks fan in both the Globe and the Seattle Times.
Why didn't they ask me to do the dueling piece?
That would have been really funny because you would have had like Wikipedia, what is football and stuff.
I would have asked Chad.
It's and for reasons that'll become clear, I want people to get a sense of the tone I took with this column. It's also rare that I can force you to read my writing. But here, please read a couple of these snippets.
Okay. I don't want this column to be full of cheap slams and parochial New England boosterism. Instead, I want to extend some kind words to our rivals this Super Bowl Sunday, because when it comes to Seattle, one simply cannot deny that it is, in fact, an American city. A crueler, less open-minded Pats fan would attempt to deny this, but I typed Seattle into Google Maps, and sure enough, it popped up. A strangely femur-shaped strip of land plopped ill-advisedly in the middle of a bunch of what I assume to be unnamed straits, brackish ponds, and uninhabitable, likely vampire-infested evergreen forest. Mm-hmm.
Using context clues, do you think I was being serious or I was joking?
Can't tell.
Okay, let's read one more to see if you can tell.
I understand there are some hurt feelings over the fact that the Patriots' rebuild was so short. It doesn't feel fair that we should be back in the Super Bowl so quickly, but this mentality ignores a few crucial facts. First, Boston is the most important city in the United States and arguably the world. It makes sense that we should win a lot of sports titles. Seattle's a different story, a historical zig here or zag here, and it is a small fishing village or perhaps a backwater fort that exists solely to keep an eye on the Canadians. That's actually sort of true.
Yeah, but do you think I'm being serious? I was joking.
I'm going to guess joking. This is tough for me.
Last one. This is my prediction, and then give me your final assessment of whether I was joking. Just read my prediction.
Pats 55, Seahawks 0, and you guys will be lucky if it's even that close. You make terrible predictions. This reminds me of the time when we bet that you bet that Kamala Harris was going to win the election. Your track record.
Did I bet? Did we actually do a bet on that?
Yeah, you paid me $100. We bet on stage.
Oh, I forgot about the bet on stage. Just, okay, you're not a football. Saying Pats 55, Seahawks 0 is like saying, I think Kamala Harris will win every state. It's just sort of, it's a gag. It's a gag prediction. So, the Super Bowl wraps up. 10 minutes later, I get an email from a Seahawks fan named Parker. This is like right after they won. He hasn't even had time to celebrate yet. First thing this guy does is email me. Katie, just read the top of it.
Hey, just writing to give you some feedback on your article/column in the Seattle Times, or should I say the Grunge City Times. I truly hope your article in the Seattle Times was satire. I have a feeling it was because there's no way with a nose that big you wouldn't smell the bullshit you were typing. Wow, he takes it there in the second fucking paragraph. Your 55-0 Pats prediction is so atrociously absurd, but I don't even need to mention that considering your quarterback is... All right, do I need to read the whole thing?
Yes, this one is particularly funny and appropriate, so just read that line.
Considering your quarterback is taking more sacks than a gay porn star...
Do gay porn stars take sacks per se?
Maybe he meant sex.
He continues, next time you spew vomit from your mouth, you should make sure you're not lying down. That's how you choke. This is like meaner than anything.
Do you think Grok wrote this?
Hopefully next time you decide to sit down and say a whole city has done so little to pull its weight, you think about the weight of your words being used against you. He continues, I can only imagine how awkward it would be to seriously write such a shit piece and have this be the result of the game. How embarrassing for the football team from the most important city in the U.S.? Question mark, which is not true. New York is way important in every way. Because we've never intersected with sports fans, I think in the history of the show, it's so easy to forget how many of them are like this. I'll just make you read 3 more sentences. 8 minutes later, I get another email. This one with the subject line 55-0 ? Katie, read this. And just keep in mind,
this one is from Pete.
And I did not mention anything about my grad school, but this is what he said.
Princeton, huh? 55-0. Fuck you, worthless lying sack of shit. Basically,
lying.
Basically, you'll say anything for money, right? They're always going to the Jew thing. You'd sell your mother's ass for money. That's
my mom's
hurtful.
dead.
Yeah, you have 0 integrity, 0 class, and 0 credibility. That's true. But you went to Princeton! ! Wow! ! Let's face it. The only thing you have to do at Princeton is get in. P.S. It's Puget Sound and Lake Washington. Fuck you, you arrogant troll.
These are the people. These are your neighbors, Katie. These are the people.
These aren't my neighbors. I live across the water. I'm actually surprised that the outcome of this wasn't people bitching that the Seattle Times published notorious transphobe Jesse Singal.
You got nothing on that. I just got this whole
I guess your haters probably don't read the Seattle Times.
Yeah. Or the Boston Globe. But I was surprised. There were only a few of these. There was one other one, but they were like among the angriest emails I've gotten. And we've way worse than sort of other groups that we have pissed off over the years.
All right, what are we talking about there?
So let's dig a little bit more into the elites who secretly control society. One story in particular that I found really interesting on that front. Before that, do you mind if we revisit one aspect of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff you led earlier this week?
Do we have to?
I think we have to, yeah.
So this was a Primo episode. If you haven't listened to that, well, join us, boxreported.org, then go listen to it.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't mention that this also, the argument, this came up in our comment section and on the subreddit, and it basically recapitulates an argument that goes all the way back to 2019 when this podcast was just a gleam in someone's eye.
We didn't exist in 2019.
We did. You and I did not exist.
No.
Yeah, we were not born yet. No. You wrote in The Stranger that Jeffrey Epstein I like how many times we've ended up talking about this podcast.
You're the one who always brings
article
this
that actually
up.
Enraged people. Yeah. You basically argued, tell me if I have this right, Epstein was not a pedophile and he didn't do anything wrong?
Not quite. If you stop at Epstein was not a pedophile and then he did do something wrong, I believe that was the gist of the article.
Right. I'm being a dick. Your point in this article was Epstein does not appear to have been into prepubescent children. He appears to be into like very young but post-pubescent girls.
Well, there was I believe it was how old was the kid he raped on the boat with Bill Clinton while Trump and Melania were watching?
Well, that was just Bill Clinton.
Oh, he was just watching.
Epstein tried to stop them. Yeah, he was like, Bill, don't do that. Yeah. Actually, Hillary was the one who instigated it. I've been watching, just according to Mario Knopfel on X.
And a whole lot of other people.
No, part of your point was like, if we actually want to understand and prevent this sort of behavior, these distinctions, even though they're like stereotypical nerd shit, they matter, right?
Yes.
So, part of the problem is as soon as you bring this up, like that's literally a meme on the internet of a guy in a fedora. Like, actually, it's hemophilia or ephebophilia? I always mix those two up.
I do too.
Well, yeah, the reason I bring this up is like I was looking at the comment section of our episode. That's the first thing I do after an episode goes up is I read every comment. And it was sort of the same thing, this idea that, and most of the fire was directed your way, I'm sorry to say, that you were somehow letting Epstein off the hook by bringing this up. So I wanted to give you a chance to respond. Are you letting Epstein off the hook? And again, arguing that everything he did was great.
Look, the point of the episode was that this has turned into a giant satanic panic. And it is scooping up people who I don't think fall for this sort of thing. People I like. I saw Anna Kasparian today. She did something with Tim Dillon. I saw this clip floating around of they were giving credence to this.
Wait, Tim Dillon did like a conspiratorial thing?
Yeah, I mean Tim Dillon, that tracks. But Anna Kasparian, who has said plenty of things I disagree with, but I don't think of her. I like Anna. She's probably listening to this. I like you. I think the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was talking in code about pizza and grape soda is silly. I think it's silly. And I think a lot of people are giving credence to Pizzagate style conspiracy thinking when what the man actually did, what we know that he did, is bad enough on its own. You don't have to turn him into a demon or a monster or the devil.
The Times did this article just pointing out like both the actual bad stuff, showing all these people's chumminess with Epstein and then lying about it, especially in the case of people like Elon Musk. But then also they quote Tucker Carlson. You know, there's these weird exchanges, there's inside jokes, and one of them involves pizza, and Tucker Carlson goes, it was this exchange that made us think, whoa, wait a second. Maybe the long debunked conspiracy about Pizzagate wasn't actually debunked, and maybe someone should take a closer look at this. No. Let me just read one paragraph from the Times. This is what sparked Tucker Carlson saying this. In an email exchange in 2018, Mr. Epstein's urologist, Dr. Harry Fish, informed him that, quote, you have refills available, end quote, and that, quote, after you use them, wash your hands and let's go get pizza and grape soda, end quote. A peculiar combination used in several emails between the two men that, Dr. Fish wrote, no one else can understand. He did not respond to an email request for comment.
I wonder why.
It's weird, but and maybe this is a failure of imagination on my part. Maybe everyone is always doing pedophile shit all the time and I'm just not invited. Likely explanations for this between a weird inside joke, like I have with many of my friends. If you took snippets of our emails out of context, they would sound weird. If you took snippets of your and my text messages out of context, they would sound weird.
Yes.
That versus Mr. Epstein's urologist, who before he met Epstein was just a urologist, is talking in code about a pedophilic sex ring. I think like if you have any evidence of that, present it. And the reason this matters and the reason the pedophilia thing came up is like, it's important to try to figure out what's what. And the whole reason we made that distinction on the show is because online things have reached such a fever pitch that people are claiming with a straight face that like an expert on infant lactation is, I guess, trying to help Epstein get literal babies to suck him off. That appears to be what it is. And just based on what we know about creeps like Epstein's proclivities, in the absence of evidence that he was into actual babies, it's like, that's one we can cross off. That didn't happen because we have no evidence he's into babies. And I don't know. I'm like, I'm becoming Katie-ish on this, where I just think these distinctions are actually really important. And then you make them and people are like, oh, you're excusing it. Because like other people are like, oh, you called the 14 and 15-year-olds developed. I don't know if we said developed or partially developed. Therefore, like that makes it sound like you think they're women and adults and consent. We don't think any of that. That's not the point.
No, the point is it really seems as though we are reaching satanic panic levels of conspiracy thinking here. I just opened Twitter. Jake Shields. Let's see how many followers he has. 892,000 followers. Multiple girls have reported they were locked in cages. Here's Epstein buying cages. And the email that he shows is about Epstein. Let me just read you the quote. Jeffrey is requesting a price list for the birds. I'm not sure what size cage the birds should be in. He's
well, no, but birds. If everything's code, birds could mean babies.
Right. Birds, people call women birds in the UK. It does happen. Yeah. Here's another one from Jake Shields. Here's an email from Jeffrey Epstein sending Woody Allen chairs from Wayfair as a gift. Wayfair. We're back to this. Children in fucking cabinets. This is psychotic thinking.
I think what's breaking people's brains is the stuff that's already out there, even just the details we have about his creepy mansion, and obviously the stuff going on in Palm Beach County, obviously his relationship to Trump, which at one time was very close. It's also, and obviously like Trump walking into fucking dressing rooms at a beauty, like it's all so gross and so out in the open, and we already know so much that I think it's like breaking people's brains that there isn't another shoe hasn't yet dropped that proves that there was literally an international ring of actual pedophiles, including super famous people. And I think the truth is like there were a lot of creepy people around Epstein, and yes, some of them messed around with underage girls, not women, girls.
And this is destroying people's reputations. The one that really gets me is actually Bill Gates. And look, Bill Gates cheated on his wife. We know this.
With a literal baby.
He had an affair. No, he had an affair with an employee at Microsoft. He cheated on his wife. Bill Gates is responsible for saving more human lives than probably everybody outside of the guy who invented penicillin. Bill Gates, there's no credible evidence that Bill Gates was involved in a fucking child trafficking ring. What we know about him is that he cheated on his wife.
But do you know whose lives he saved? He saved babies' lives, Katie.
Babies' lives. Yeah, well, I wonder why.
Trying to accumulate them for his friend Jeffrey Epstein.
Jesse, I just opened up Twitter. Michael Schellenberger. The New York Times today noted that in one Epstein email, there is a, quote, peculiar combination of pizza and grape soda, ... I encourage people to read the messages themselves. In no case did I get the feeling that they were actually talking about pizza and grape soda. Okay, guys, Michael Schellenberger's on it.
Dude, he's so... Oh, yeah. In terms of people with big platforms who are incredibly irresponsible with those platforms and who are taken seriously, he's bad. He's quite bad.
Check out this turducken of posting. We've got Michael Schellenberger being reposted, retweeted by Representative Anna Paulina Luna. So this is a Florida rep. She says, given the coded language in his communications, this raises serious questions for me.
Grape soda.
Coded language, grape soda. And guess who retweeted this? Mike Cernovich.
So what the turducken, who's the innermost part of the turducken is a sitting member of Schellenberger.
No, Schellenberger.
Then Cernovich.
And then, yeah, so the turd is Schellenberger. The duck is Representative Anna Paulina Luna. And in the inn is Cernovich. Does that make sense? Turducken?
Dude, we can't get it. The Epstein stuff is such a rich vein of online bullshit.
And look, there should be investigations. Sure, yes, I think that. But this drop of 3 million fucking emails and files to people who have apparently zero skepticism is just leading to this fevered moral panic. It is turning sane people crazy.
There was just one quick thing from the subreddit. This is like sort of the Steelman position, I think. BarPod is allowing its criticism of a few internet dorks grifting people by advertising all these tips and files as true, which fine, report that story if you'd like. It's not surprising, though, to disbelieve everything in the file dumps. How do you know what's true or not? How do you know that Epstein didn't murder children or teens or whoever? I think
tell me which children. Can we have some victims'
I think
names?
it's irresponsible to just say, quote, "Oh, that can't be true because it's just too weird," end quote. I mean, during the this is a little bit different from the satanic sex abuse panic because like there is obviously underlying criminal behavior at the core of it. We know some of the illegal, horrible stuff Jeffrey Epstein did, but to say, how do you know Epstein didn't murder children or teens or whoever? Like, it's like saying, how do you know the daycare center didn't tie children to a tree and drive nails through? It's like, well, because there'd be some physical evidence. There'd be someone who's like, my kid went to the island, didn't come back and disappeared. And there's like different levels of evil, and Epstein was very evil. I just don't think there's any evidence he was getting sucked off by literal infants evil or murdering teenagers evil. I don't know.
Look, if people can find some actual victims, some people who are claiming that their children, their specific children who they can name, were murdered by Jeffrey Epstein or, yes, disappeared on his island or whatever, this is worth investigating. But until you have actual victims, this is just rank fucking speculation from crazy people. And I think that there is something about this moment that has completely broken people's brains. This is unrelated to Epstein, but another friend of the pod, another person who was on the show when we first started the show, Megan Murphy, was on her Substack this week talking about how the moon landing was faked.
Wait, really?
She thinks that the moon landing was faked.
Moon landing. Let's see. Is there anyone left who still believes we landed on the moon?
I'm raising my hand right here.
This is that thing where like Bridget Fetisi says, I do.
Good.
Okay, well, if you do, I can be convinced, perhaps. But that video, so there's some...
She genuinely thinks the moon landing was fake.
We just live in an age that's so bad for this conspiracy theorizing. There's just no consensus reality left, and it's just going to keep getting worse.
And I think that people who have lost trust in the media because of the trans issue or because of the coverage of COVID might be particularly susceptible to this because there have been real failures in institutions that most of us grew up thinking were trustworthy, but just because the AMA was wrong on the science of youth gender medicine doesn't mean they faked the fucking moon landing. Megan.
I mean that's sort of the slippery slope is like you have legitimate complaints about, and that's the one we've talked about the most, is the youth gender stuff, and that just sets you down this path of like, well, if they were wrong about that, could they be? Yeah, maybe they're wrong about everything, which like there's a certain logic to that, but no, there's stuff they're not wrong about, such as the moon landing.
Yeah. Or do we know, Jesse? Were you there?
I was not there. I was busy dealing with the pigeon, so I wasn't able to make the moon landing. We just last note on this. We mentioned this in the episode, but there are genuine trade-offs if you don't really. First of all, just like the Epstein files, which when Pam Bondi was talking about them, it seemed to be a very specific thing, like implicating specific named individuals, not just any email sent by anyone in his orbit. But it's reached a point where if you don't release the Epstein files, people will accuse you of hiding stuff. Right. If you do release the Epstein files, you get this dynamic where every word is scrutinized, and you get Mario Knopfel types doing what they do. I just think it's unlikely that if Epstein literally murdered children or teens, he would have then referenced these criminal acts using like a paper-thin code that any idiot on the internet could decrypt. Maybe he's just really bad at doing crimes.
You're such an apologist, Jesse.
Anything else on the Epstein stuff, Katie?
No, unfortunately, I think this is going to be a recurring story. Look, the guy was a creep. He was a convicted...
A criminal?
Sex offender. He was a criminal. He was on the sex offender registry. 8 babies? Probably not.
Well, and the other, actually, I don't want to keep ranting about this, but like, maybe tell me about what we're thinking this, but you keep seeing this coverage that's like, this really reveals these networks of unaccountable elites. And I just don't, is that, before this happened, were you unaware that there were networks of unaccountable elites who jetted around the world going to creepy parties? Like, is that really news? I don't know. Like, I do think it's revealing. It's useful to know who interacted with Epstein, and especially the people who chose to keep hanging out with him after it was clear who he was. That's a huge black mark on their character. And there are people like Tina Brown who are like, no, fuck that. But I'm not like, I don't know. I think I think it just keeps coming down to, it's like Trump with the piss tape. Everyone's waiting for like the smoking gun thing to come out, and it's not going to come out. And in the meantime, they have to be like, well, this does reveal XYZ. It's like, sort of, but I'm not surprised about the elites. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Can I say one more thing about this? So
fine.
One of the things we brought up as an example of conspiratorial thinking was the fact that Jeffrey Epstein, according to these emails, these files, he bought, or someone connected to him bought, a large amount of sulfuric acid to have shipped to his private island, Little St. James. And the online chatter about this is that he was dissolving bodies in this, which is obviously why there's no bodies. And I said, there's the purchase, the purpose of the purchase is in the purchase order. This was he had a desalination plant on his island. This is a chemical that is used for something in desalination. It's in the water purification system. And someone I think this was on the subreddit, said, well, what I didn't mention was that he ordered this on the same day that the FBI began their federal child sex trafficking investigation of him. And it was irresponsible of me not to mention this. And the reason I didn't mention it is because it's fucking ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I guess the leap there is like, they opened the investigation, which how would he know about that unless like he had someone in the FBI? Do you think the FBI calls up the lawyers for the target of the investigation?
That's why we're opening up an investigation on this day.
Yeah. So I guess the leap is they open up the investigation. He has a plant in the FBI who tells him that this opened up this day, and he's like, fuck, we got to get the sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
This is crazy thinking. This is crazy. I'm sorry. He was not dissolving bodies on Little St. James. He was a fucking creep and an abuser. He wasn't dissolving bodies.
It's also the classic thing of certain conspiracy theories where this person is like infinitely powerful, infinite resources, evil genius, but then he also like puts the order for dissolving the bodies in an email when like even like mid-tier mob bosses know they have a guy who handles that stuff, and it's all done verbal. It just doesn't make past the smell test, or will prove to be wrong and evidence will come out. But you can't generally dissolve bodies without someone being like, oh yeah, I'm missing a relative.
This is a coincidence. Do I know for 100% sure that he wasn't dissolving bodies on his island? Yes, I do, because I got it.
Well, we've just lost all of our listeners.
That was like one of those primo episodes where I'm like, this is either going to get us a bunch of new subscribers or we're going to lose a lot. I think this was in the lose a lot category. But
I also I don't think there's actually a market for like the more moderate take on Epstein.
No, I don't think there is.
And also, it's not even a moderate. It's like, we're not even saying... Okay, anyway. One other thing, just before we get to the main story today.
30 minutes later.
We should do housekeeping. But first, I just... you had mentioned us possibly talking about there have been a lot of developments in youth gender worlds. And I don't want to talk about them yet because I'm working on a freelance piece that is one of those things where like I'm not yet sure it's going to run. The draft is complete. If it does run, we will have a lot to talk about the next episode, but even if it doesn't, I'll also be free to talk about it. But in the meantime, people should check out your Substack Live with Ben Ryan on this big detransition case involving a young woman named Fox Varian. And then, of course, people should read up on the American Society of Plastic Surgeons and the American Medical Association somewhat backing off from youth gender medicine.
Yeah, Helen wrote a piece about this in The Atlantic. We'll post a link in the show notes.
Yes. But yeah, I'm glad you did that with Ben, and people should talk
Ben was
about
good.
it. Should we do housekeeping? You do housekeeping.
We are a podcast. Mm-hmm. We are not yet a video podcast, although let's check our YouTube page. So we quietly started a YouTube page, and
well, no, we started years ago, and then we reactivated it.
And I used this thanks to our designer. She helped us set up this like program that like turns our episodes into video with no actual video. It's
like a visualizer type thing.
Just the text on a screen. A visualizer, yeah. And so, but it like this program, it's called Headliner, it automatically uploads old episodes, and it appears to be doing it in no particular order. So we have some episodes that are like the recent ones, and then some that are like episodes from, like, it goes from here. We go from episode 292 to episode 13, 12, 11. And I keep deleting them because I want them to be, I want there to be some semblance of order on the page. So I think we're actually like regularly losing subscribers on the YouTube page because this makes no fucking sense.
Wait, they go in random order and then you delete them?
They go in random order and then I delete the old ones.
So wait, we just had 4 weeks ago episode 12 of our podcast from 2020 go up?
Yeah.
With 38 views?
Yeah. So our pivot to video is going very well. Although look, our Hassan Piker episode.
Wait, we only have 24 videos total?
It's there's honestly, I don't know how this works. There's no rhyme or reason to this. It's like it uploads like one a day and then I delete the old ones. So sorry.
Wait, but then how will they get re-uploaded?
I want them to be in order. I don't know. It's a whole system. I'm trying to figure it out.
This is all news to me. Yeah. I thought it was just okay. Well,
so we have a YouTube page. Honestly, I don't go watch the videos if you want. I don't know why you would. You could just listen to them, but if you want.
Well, no, the point of this was this isn't for the current listeners. It's to bring in the younger generation that watches everything in video, though we don't actually have video to offer them. Yeah.
So anyway, we pivoted to video. Everyone else is doing it, so we are too. We're followers. Yeah. Except when it comes to Epstein.
We really blew our wads on this Epstein stuff. I feel like a little tired now.
The ants and the Epstein, it's a rough one. Okay, so we are a podcast. You can reach out to us, send us your angry emails about Jeffrey Epstein or tips on how to get rid of carpenter ants to blockedandreportedpodcast@gmail.com. But most importantly, please become a premium subscriber, a primo. You get at least 3 extra episodes every month. We have a fuck ton of extra content for primos this month. We're doing our 3 extra episodes. We did this live with Ben Ryan. I'm doing a live with Laura Delano. This is part of our book club. The book club meeting is on February 22nd. The book that we are discussing is Unshrunk, A Story of Psychiatric Treatment Resistance. So go ahead and get that book, read that book. It's very interesting. This is a new thing that we're doing. We also have our personals. They will have dropped by the time our free listeners get this show. We got a great batch of personals this year. And I think if we don't get a baby out of it, or a marriage, we might at least get one murder.
One or the other.
Personals are great this year. One or the other. So you get a bunch of extra content for joining us, and you also support the show. And honestly, we need it. Our Epstein takes aren't doing well for us.
Thank you for housekeeping, Katie. I wanted to devote some time to this big new article in The Atlantic by Tyler Austin Harper. Harper is a really interesting guy who has blown up over the last few years. When I first heard about him, he was a professor at Bates College. He actually left his professor job to become a staff writer at The Atlantic.
Interesting move. I mean, look, I probably would have done the same thing. The Atlantic is amazing. What a place to work. But to go from he was an assistant professor, tenure track, to go from a position that has immense stability to a position that has no stability. Although The Atlantic is, I'm sure, more stable than just about any other outlet.
Yeah, but it isn't the same. You can get laid off from The Atlantic. I mean,
have you had any media layoffs, or have you ever been laid off?
No, but I haven't had enough. I've had like one slightly prestigious media staff job, and I left to write a book. I'm sure I would have been laid off eventually from New York Magazine.
Yeah, I've had 2 media layoffs.
What was the first one before The Stranger?
Grist. And I've had, I've been laid off from probably 6 jobs, and then fired from another 10, but that's separate, different business.
I think, I don't remember when I first noticed Tyler Austin Harper, but yeah, he was at Bates at the time, and he's got this sort of interesting insider-outsider thing going, because he was a black professor
in Maine
at a very stereotypically white liberal arts school in Maine. Yeah. He wrote this column about being the, quote, wrong kind of black professor that I found really interesting. And it jibed with some stuff I've heard from others in similar positions. Just read a little bit from it. Over the last decade, I have been persistently dumbfounded by comfortable white, supposedly quote unquote woke faculty members suggesting that a black person isn't sufficiently focused on their own blackness. Every time I've been criticized for studying white authors, it was a progressive presenting white academic levying the complaint. So he this sense of academic freedom is important to him. He wants to be able to study and write about what he wants to write about. He also he's a hunting and fishing and guns guy. He actually wrote a piece about the Second Amendment ramifications of the killing of Alex Preddy. So
he does this very interesting and extremely dangerous kind of night fishing. Did you read that piece on The Atlantic?
Yes, yeah. Tell us about the night fishing.
I can't even describe it. There's these incredible photos where you wade out or swim out to these slimy rocks and somehow perch on them and then catch
just shoot at the fish.
Something like that. Yeah. So what's the newest piece about?
It's called the multi-billion-dollar foundation that controls the humanities. It's specifically about the Mellon Foundation. So yeah, even before Trump, it was only getting more important because all these colleges and universities shrinking budgets, to the extent there's money, it goes to STEM fields. No one cares about the humanities. But today, post-Trump, quote, "Today, no single entity, including the federal government, has a more profound influence on the fiscal health and cultural output of the humanities than the Mellon Foundation. The National Endowment for the Humanities grant budget was $78 million in 2024. Mellon, this Mellon Foundation alone, awarded $540 million in grants that same year. Its endowment sits at roughly $8 billion. So this is just funding a huge amount of scholarship, half $1 billion a year at a time when this kind of funding is very hard to come by.
All right, so that seems good.
That's great. So a lot of the story is about the shifting priorities of the foundation and specifically what happened after a woman named Elizabeth Alexander became president in 2018.
And who is she?
So I'm going to have you read a little bit from the story. And as you listen to this, listeners, keep in mind, we've hammered home at this point so often on the show this question of which social justice ideas percolate through the culture and the extent to which maybe they are held not by oppressed people, but by wealthy elite types, privileged elites, let's say. So read Tyler Austin Harper's description of Elizabeth Alexander, head of the Mellon Foundation.
Alexander's pedigree made her a natural choice to lead the foundation. Born to Clifford J. Alexander Jr., a Kennedy administration official and the first Black Secretary of the Army, and Adele Logan Alexander, a noted historian, she has spent a lifetime in elite institutions. Sidwell Friends, that's the Quaker school that the Obama girl...
Prep school in D.C., yeah.
Yale, Boston University to study poetry with Derek Walcott. A PhD in English from the University of Pennsylvania, a stint as an assistant professor at the University of Chicago, followed by Smith, followed by Yale, again, followed by, you know what, God, her student loans must be huge, followed by reciting her own poetry at Barack Obama's first inauguration. Quote, "In today's sharp sparkle, this winter air, anything can be made, any sentence begun, on the brink, on the brim, on the cusp." Is that good poetry voice?
Yeah, that was really good.
A stint as the Ford Foundation's Director of Creativity and, ironically, free expression after that. Then Mellon.
So Harper quotes her as having said in 2020, she started in 2018, 2020 was when this stuff peaked, quote, "There won't be a penny that is going out the door that is not contributing to a more fair, more just, more beautiful society." Every penny, Katie.
Is art meant for anything but that? So what does this mean in practice? How do you determine what is going to contribute to a fair, more just, more beautiful society and what isn't?
Right.
Is this because when I hear more beautiful society, I think, all right, every penny is going to Looks Maxing.
Looks Maxing, Banksy murals, stuff like that. This had been a foundation that would give humanities scholars money to just do scholarship. There had not been in the past a sense that your scholarship necessarily has to promote social justice. So that changed under Alexander. So Harper quotes a director responsible for grant administration at a small college who said that humanities professors at her institution were distraught by Mellon's new focus, which they saw coming at the expense of areas of inquiry without obvious social justice relevant. And then she characterized some of the reactions she's heard. "Are you saying that it's no longer valuable that I'm doing research on these texts from this time to see what I can learn about them? Is that not valuable anymore to anyone?" And what's interesting about this is there is this right-wing attempt to cut funding for humanities for humanity's sake. Mm-hmm. Why would you just, this won't make us money. This won't produce a tangible outcome. This is sort of the same thing, right? It's you can't just study some ancient text because it's part of humanity's rich tapestry. You need to do research projects that will make the world a more just place.
Right. It's not this has to contribute to the GDP. This has to contribute to social justice.
GWP, the gross woke product. And this is something that like we've seen not just in the humanities, but when you see it's sort of an arms race to prove that your area of academia produces social justice output. So even fields like chemistry and astronomy, where for different reasons it's pretty clear like why we study them and what we're hoping to discover, you've seen these fields try to like throw up the social justice flag and prove that they're part of the fight for a better world, right?
Yeah. And this leads to a certain type of person or a person who can espouse particular values becoming more prominent in academia.
Yeah, the incentives point that way. The more social justice you are, the more you'll have a chance at holding on to like the bottom rung of this increasingly slippery ladder. And it's sort of worse than that because Harper mentions situations in which academics he has known have twisted their own work, which they did not see as strictly political, into like a more racialized or social justice-y direction just to improve the possibility of it getting funded.
You just put like a land acknowledgement in your headline.
Yes. Like Harper, he's not a conspiracy theorist, but this is the Mellon Foundation is not the explanation for every trend in academia, but he's making this like pretty simple and hard to refute point, which is that if the single biggest source of funding for the humanities chooses to favor a certain style of work, that's going to have clear-cut consequences. He writes, quote, "It is hard to see how an incentive structure that pushes scholars to fake or fudge an interest in social justice helps produce a more just academy. If anything, this seems likely to further entrench higher education's tendency to confuse performative preening with real societal improvement. It also faces the difference between serious scholarship on race, colonialism, or gender, and gaseous buzzword mongering."
Does he have specific examples of this buzzword mongering?
Well, so he talks about when he was a student, Mellon had this thing called the Dissertation Completion Fellowship that gave scholars support just to finish their dissertations. And they could be writing about whatever. That program was eliminated in 2022, and there's a new program called the Dissertation Innovation Fellowship. And whenever innovation comes into the conversation, that's usually not a great sign. This focuses on, quote, "supporting scholars who can build a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable academy," end quote.
And so what exactly is being funded?
So I went to the website and I looked up the current crop of fellows, and I don't want to like, sometimes people do this thing where they look at the title of a dissertation and they assume that it's worthless, which like, you don't know that. You don't know this area.
Yeah. You see this often with things like that, like the term environmental justice. It does sound like a woke buzzword. We did an episode on this after the Trump administration. It actually describes an important concept, which is not really identity based. You know, this could be flood remediation for low-lying trailer parks in West Virginia. It could also be dealing with smog in inner cities, or like infrastructure projects to deal with rising sea levels in Alaskan fishing villages. It's a word that turns off people who don't understand it because it sounds super woke, but it describes a very important concept.
Yeah. Well, so with that in mind, like I looked at the current crop, and let me just read one example that jumped out at me, and then I'll explain why it jumped out at me. This one scholar was doing, quote, "research integrating methods in climate science and historical research to interrogate the ways natural disasters informed, shaped, and constrained the actions of historical figures and political entities in pre-colonial Punjab, India." Now, that's all well and good. The problem is if you're doing something like history and you're trying to understand why certain things happen when they happen, inevitably that's going to be the result of like a million different factors. And as Harper explained in his piece, this fellowship you don't just get the money, no strings attached. They work with you on the direction of your research before that direction is finalized. So they're going to fund you if you have something social justice-y to say about, for example, climate science.
Right. So do you think that this particular scholar just wanted to talk about the history of pre-colonial Punjab, India, but had to shape it into this interrogation of climate science, all of that stuff?
Yeah, that's the concern, right? Is that in exactly the same way, like not exactly the same way. We're not in Soviet Russia, but like in Soviet society, stuff would get funded and science would be promoted if it promoted the party and a certain worldview. This is like a lighter version of that, because this scholar who's like looking into very complicated stuff from a long time ago is now going to be specifically nudged toward telling a version of the story that will be that 21st century progressives who hold the funding purse strings want to tell. And I don't see how anyone could think that that's a good thing rather than a bad thing, given that there's a limited pot of funding for the humanities in general, right?
Yeah, this sort of thing has been going on in journalism too, where you approach a story already knowing what you're going to find. And I'll say, like, this is not just something I've experienced as a writer in like leftist outlets. I've also experienced this with kind of anti-woke centrist outlets.
Yeah, there's just one example that jumped out at me back in 2020 where the New York Times sent a bunch of journalists to Minneapolis to like talk to activists and protesters and talk about police reform. And they didn't quote anyone who was opposed to defunding the police, even though I think 2/3 of Black Americans are opposed to defunding the police. So that's sort of the journalism equivalent of that. You approach a story and like, frankly, yeah, I don't think they had a conspiracy. This story had like, between the byline names and then the researchers listed at the bottom, like 9 people. And I don't think it was a conspiracy where they're like, we're going to tell this particular story. But I think like it was sort of preordained that was what they were going to find in Minneapolis, is support for defunding the police. And that doesn't necessarily reflect the people being police.
Right.
You know?
And you can, I think if you, like, I haven't read that particular story, so I don't know how they handled it, but you can contextualize this. Like if you're going to do a story on defunding the police, that's completely fine. Interview people who want defunding the police, but just include some actual polling in your piece. Contextualize it.
Yeah.
Say it's unpopular. Say that these people are outliers.
Yeah. And this just gets back to something else. Harper writes in his piece, which is, quote, Alexander's appointment to Mellon also speaks to another trend I've observed within wealthy liberal institutions in which people of color from unusually privileged backgrounds are anointed as standard bearers for a radical cultural worldview that many working class minorities do not share, even as the former are ostensibly intended to, quote unquote, represent the latter. I would snap my fingers here, but I think that's appropriation. But this is a huge problem where like the people who get to tell the story of Minneapolis's response to George Floyd's killing themselves come from certain backgrounds, even whatever color their skin is, and themselves have certain views on the best way forward. And that just sort of pollutes the whole process of open inquiry.
Right. Well, it's this assumption that it's a racist assumption that if people have a certain colored skin, they're going to, did I just say colored skin? Don't cancel
colored
me.
Skin, yeah.
If they have
skin of color.
If they have skin of color, then they somehow represent everybody in this demographic, which is obviously a fiction.
Yeah. Well, I think in 2026, people are no longer falling for this because, like, you'd have to live under. How many rocks would you have to live under to not understand that there are non-white wealthy people from privileged backgrounds?
Right. Or you just look at results from the 2016 election and you look at Hispanic populations that voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah. But yeah, there's this real stolen valor thing where people who claim to be speaking for the oppressed end up caping for like rich and powerful institutions. So on Thursday, Harper said on Twitter, this is in reaction to some of the backlash he got to the piece, amusing watching self-described leftists leap to the defense of a $1 billion nonprofit created by robber baron kids and helmed by an Obama world Ivy Leaguer that plies $500 million annually in the service of economically defanged identity mumbo-jumbo in revolutionary garb. I think that nicely sums up the problem. And I should just note...
Sorry to interrupt you, but do you know anything about his background?
Tyler's?
Yeah, I mean, I know he taught at Bates and he hunts and fishes, so there's sort of a interesting contradiction there. But is he also one of these sort of elite black,
Yeah, so his dad was a cop and a veteran, so like, I don't know his exact.
You don't know his tax returns.
Socioeconomic background. I did not acquire his IRS documents, but that's the sort of background where you're. Yeah. That's just a more common background than someone who went to elite schools and believes in, say, defunding the police. So I just want to mention too, like Harper does say that the Mellon Foundation also moved toward paying more attention to like less funded, less represented higher ed institutions, and they have worthwhile initiatives, like they'll provide funds allowing kids from those schools to do otherwise unpaid internships. So it's not like he glosses over the good stuff, but overall his piece just like nicely explains like part of the reason why we're suddenly hearing certain buzzwords everywhere and certain views are so seemingly popular, even as they're actually not that popular. They're the views that, people at the top of certain hierarchies have and want to spread.
Does the Mellon Foundation fund journalism?
I don't think so. And I was actually curious about this analogy because obviously the same thing is going on in journalism, but I think it's not for the same reasons. Like there's definitely foundation money sloshing around in journalism. Yeah. I know some people who try to get grants here and there, but I don't think we have anything nearly as big as a foundation with an $8 billion endowment and $500 million in annual grants. So I don't really think foundation funding can explain what's happening in journalism. You're in from your environmental reporting background, there's definitely grants and stuff there, right?
Oh yeah. GRIST was heavily funded by foundations and large donors. They did have small donors as well, but grant writing was a huge part of the funding there. And I'm sure that did influence the scope of coverage for sure.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their funders now. They have a huge number of funders, one of whom is anonymous. Do you think that's the Anarchist Collective? And most of these foundations are foundations that work in climate, of course, it's a climate change outlet. But I do think if you put, and I'm trying to think, if you pitched a sort of heterodox piece there about how, let's say, fracking was good actually, because fracking is a bridge fuel to get off of coal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the Matt Iglesias case for fracking
would get funded,
would make it into that outlet.
I just want to end on one point, which is, Tyler Austin Harper specifically talks about the idea of go woke, go broke. Quote, according to this theory, ultra-progressive faculty coalesced around an unpopular liberal orthodoxy, turning off undergraduates and the public and accelerating the humanities decline, ... This tale places too much of the blame on humanities professors, overestimating their actual power within institutions. More important, the went woke, went broke hypothesis does not account for the ways that economic transformations within a higher education have accelerated the trends that conservatives lament. So he then says, specifically the right-wing theory of the case gets the causal error wrong. The humanities aren't broke because they went woke. The humanities went woke in large part because they were broke. As other donors, the government and universities themselves all but abandoned these fields, the Mellon Foundation became a lifeline. So I think a lot of that is applicable to journalism, not, that we now have some foundation that funds journalism.
Right.
But I think journalism going broke meant a higher and higher percentage of the people in journalism were from elite backgrounds. And we do have data on journalism becoming more and more of a rich kid's game.
Right. This is a point that Matt Taibbi has made, that journalism used to be considered basically a trade. I think he comes from an old newspaper family, that this was not the sort of job that you would go do unpaid internship after unpaid internship. You would get a job as, in the mailroom and then as a copy boy and then work your way up, which still existed. Like Donald McNeil Jr., who famously got pushed out of the New York Times a couple years ago. We did a bunch of stories on that. He started out in the mailroom.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exist. That sort of, that path doesn't exist anymore.
No. And if journalism is overwhelmingly kids from the same sorts of schools with the same sorts of backgrounds, I think that's just going to make them less likely to question certain orthodoxy and more willing to parrot it. And that's not good. So anyway,
yeah, this is an argument that I made, that I've been making for over 10 years at this point, that journalism schools like at NPR, I don't know if this is true, if this is still true, but when I was trying to break into journalism in my late 20s, to be an intern at NPR, you had to be within a year of graduating from college. And I wrote to NPR and I was like, this is classist. You should
completely.
Yes, this is completely classist.
It specifically filters out the sorts of people who that's insane.
People who go get in jobs, and that people like me who go spend 10 years fucking around in bars and then decide they want to get a job in journalism. You shouldn't exclude those people. But also you should be, if you actually want to expand the diversity of journalism, hire people from community colleges.
Yeah.
That in itself, just basically lowering the standards, is going to increase the diversity. And maybe there'll be some downstream consequences of that, but you will have a more diverse pool of applicants.
Yeah. It's all very depressing. But anyway, this was a really
Jesse,
good...
Sorry. Can we... Speaking of depressing,
yeah.
I just opened Twitter.
Oh, no. Why do you keep opening Twitter during the episode? This is the problem.
Jink Uyghur, I no longer believe official 9/11 story.
This is actually Jink. He actually tweeted this.
2 paper passports did not burn and were found on the rubble, but it was so hot World Trade Center 7 burned down across the street. Nonsense. It's time to look for who gained from 9/11. Our government doesn't work for us. They've been lying the whole time.
This is psychotic.
There is a proposed community note that says that actually one hijacker passport was found. Not to.
Oh my God. The Matrix continues as if nothing happened, he said. Okay. Well, so it's good that there's no more funding for just like normal journalism or academia. What could go wrong? Anything else you want to add on this, Katie?
I know, just like people stop. Let's stop. Let's all just agree to stop.
Stop. I'll just stop.
Let's stop.
Let's just everybody stop. This has been Blocked and Reported. As always, we are produced with help from Jessica the 80s Baby. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.